1. We're diving into a classic beauty that's up for grabs on Craigslist. Get ready to feast your eyes on a 1963 Dodge Dart convertible that's sure to turn heads wherever it goes. Now let's talk about the nitty-gritty. The seller has listed this Dart with an asking price of $9,150. That might seem like a pretty penny, but hear me out. This little convertible has been given some serious TLC. The ad mentions a new paint job, a fresh top, and a completely redone interior. That's the kind of stuff that can really make an old car feel like new again. Under the hood, you'll find a trusty 6-cylinder engine paired with an automatic transmission. The seller claims it runs and drives well, which is always a good sign. And with just 60,000 miles on the odometer, this Dart has plenty of life left in it. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, but what about the condition? Well, the seller has listed it as good, and based on the description, it seems like they've been pretty upfront about the work that's been done. Of course, good can mean different things to different people, so if you're seriously interested, it's always a good idea to go check it out in person and maybe bring along a mechanic friend to give it a once-over. All in all, this 1963 Dodge Dart convertible seems like a pretty sweet ride. It's got a clean title, some nice upgrades, and a classic style that's sure to make you the talk of the town. If you're in the market for a fun little cruiser, this might just be the one for you. 2. We've got a real treat for you on Craigslist. Get ready to check out this stunning 1978 Buick Regal that's looking for a new home. First things first, let's talk about the price. The seller is asking $9,500 for this beauty. Now, I know that might seem like a lot, but trust me, once you hear about all the goodies this Regal has to offer, you'll see why it's worth every penny. This Regal is rocking a powerful 5.0L Chevy engine with a 4-barrel carb, paired with a smooth-shifting turbo 350 transmission. That means you'll have plenty of power under the hood to get your heart racing. And with rear-wheel drive, you'll be able to feel that classic muscle car experience every time you hit the gas. But it's not just about the power. This Regal has been lovingly maintained and upgraded. The seller mentions that it has all new suspension components, including control arm bushings, ball joints, springs, shocks, and rear trailing arm bushings. That means this car should ride like a dream and handle like a champ. Inside, you'll find a super clean black cloth interior that looks absolutely fantastic. And get this, the air conditioning blows ice cold. That's a real bonus in a classic car like this. You've also got tilt steering and cruise control, which are nice modern touches in a vintage ride. Now let's talk about the exterior. This Regal is sporting its original black paint, and it looks absolutely stunning. Black is such a timeless, classy color on a car like this, and it really makes all the chrome and trim pop. The seller has listed the condition as good, and based on the description and the low mileage, just 88,000 on the odometer, it seems like this Regal has been very well cared for. Of course, as with any classic car, it's always a good idea to see it in person and maybe have a mechanic check it out before you make a final decision. Overall, this 1978 Buick Regal seems like an absolute gem. With its powerful engine, updated suspension, cold AC, and original black paint, it's the kind of car that's sure to turn heads and put a smile on your face every time you get behind the wheel. If you're looking for a classic muscle car that's ready to hit the road, this might just be the one for you. 3. We've got a really unique find for you. A 1961 Plymouth Valiant that's looking for a new owner. First off, let's talk about the price. The seller is asking $8,500 for this classic Mopar. Now, that might seem like a lot for a car that's over 60 years old, but hear me out. This isn't just any old Valiant, it's a rare 2-door model, and those don't come up for sale very often. Under the hood, you'll find a 225 slant-6 engine, which is a legendary power plant known for its durability and reliability. It's paired with a push-button automatic transmission, which is a really cool feature that you don't see very often these days. Now let's talk about the condition. The seller is pretty upfront about the fact that this Valiant needs some work. They mention that it needs a carburetor tune-up and cleaning to be a true turnkey classic. They also note that the heater core is leaking and has been disconnected. These are issues that you'll want to address if you're planning on driving this car regularly. As for the body, the seller mentions some minor rust spots, but overall they say the paint is in good condition. The interior is original, which is a big plus for collectors who value authenticity. One thing to keep in mind is that this Valiant doesn't come with any papers. It's a bill of sale only. That means you'll need to do some legwork to get it registered and titled in your name. Overall, this 1961 Plymouth Valiant is a really cool find for the right buyer. It's a rare two-door model with a desirable slant-six engine and push-button transmission. It needs some work, but if you're handy with a wrench and don't mind putting in some elbow grease, it could be a really fun project car. Of course, as with any classic car purchase, it's always a good idea to see it in person and have a mechanic check it out before you make a final decision. But if you're looking for a unique piece of Mopar history, this Valiant is definitely worth a closer look. 4. We've got an absolute gem for you on Craigslist, a 1963 Chrysler Imperial that's sure to make your jaw drop. First off, let's talk about the price. The seller is asking $15,000 for this beauty, and when you hear about all the work that's been done and the incredible condition it's in, you'll see why it's worth every penny. This Imperial is a true piece of automotive history. It's one of only about 1,245 that were handmade back in 1963, which makes it incredibly rare. And the best part? It's been lovingly maintained and restored over the years, so it's in fantastic shape inside and out. Under the hood, you'll find a massive 413 cubic inch V8 engine that puts out a whopping 370 horsepower. The seller says it runs great, and with all the recent maintenance, including new fan belts, you can bet it's ready to hit the road. The transmission has also been gone through and is said to shift smoothly, so you won't have to worry about any clunky gear changes. And with new tires installed just 2 months ago, this Imperial is ready to cruise in style. Now, let's talk about the body. The seller says it's mostly original except for the paint, and that it's rust-free and accident-free. That's a huge plus for a car of this age. The quarter panels are excellent, and there's no rust bubbling anywhere. Even the bottoms of the doors are like new. Inside, you'll find a luxurious leather interior that's in great shape. The dash has no cracks, and all the power windows and the radio work perfectly. This Imperial also comes loaded with features like power vent windows, power seat, remote trunk release, and even cruise control, which Chrysler called autopilot back in the day. The trunk floor is said to be like new, and even the original trunk carpet is in good shape and can be dyed if desired. And get this, the fuel tank and sender have been replaced, so you won't have to worry about any fuel system issues. Overall, this 1963 Chrysler Imperial is an incredible find. It's rare, it's rust-free, it's loaded with features, and it's been meticulously maintained over the years. If you're looking for a classic car that's sure to turn heads and make you the envy of every car show, this might just be the one for you. 5. We've got a 1983 Ford Mustang convertible that's looking for a new home on Craigslist. Now, before we dive in, let's talk about the price. The seller is asking $6,200 for this Mustang. That might seem like a lot for a car that's almost 40 years old, but when you hear about all the work that's been done, you'll see why it's priced the way it is. First off, this isn't your average '83 Mustang. It's a GLX model with a 5.0L V8 engine, which means it's got some serious power under the hood. And speaking of the engine, it's brand new. That's right. The seller has dropped in a fresh power plant, along with a new transmission, carburetor, and a whole host of other goodies. In fact, the list of new parts on this Mustang is pretty impressive. The seller has replaced the fuel tank, tires, brakes, shocks, rack and pinion, headers, exhaust, distributor, serpentine kit, water pump, oil pan, radiator, electric fan, valve covers, electric fuel pump, headlights, and even the heater core. It's clear that a lot of time and money has been invested in getting this Mustang back into top shape. Now let's talk about the condition. The seller has listed it as fair, which is a bit of a red flag. They don't go into a lot of detail about what that means, so it's hard to say exactly what kind of shape the body and interior are in. There could be some rust, dents, or other issues that will need to be addressed. That being said, with all the mechanical work that's been done, this Mustang should be a solid driver. The new engine and transmission should provide plenty of power and reliability, and the new suspension components should make it handle like a dream. Of course, as with any used car purchase, it's always a good idea to see it in person and have a mechanic check it out before making a final decision. And with a car that's been modified like this one, you'll want to make sure everything was done properly and that there are no hidden issues lurking beneath the surface. Overall, this 1983 Ford Mustang GLX convertible seems like a solid project car for the right buyer. It's got a ton of new parts and a powerful V8 engine, but it may need some work to get the body and interior up to snuff. If you're handy with a wrench and don't mind putting in some elbow grease, this could be a really fun car to own and drive. 6. We've got a real treat for you on Craigslist, a 1985 Pontiac Trans Am that's sure to get your heart racing. First off, let's talk about the price. The seller is asking just $6,500 for this beauty, which is an absolute steal when you consider all the work that's been done and the incredible condition it's in. Under the hood, you'll find a brand new 350 cubic inch V8 engine that's been paired with a rebuilt 350 transmission. That means you'll have plenty of power and reliability for all your driving adventures. And with a Holley carburetor, Edelbrock intake, and MSD distributor, this Trans Am is sure to run like a top. But the upgrades don't stop there. This Trans Am has also been fitted with headers for improved exhaust flow, as well as drilled and slotted disc brakes on all four corners for incredible stopping power. And with a touchscreen radio that includes GPS navigation, you'll have all the modern conveniences you need for your daily drive or weekend getaway. Now let's talk about the condition. The seller has listed it as excellent, and based on the description and the low mileage, just 14,646 miles, it's easy to see why. This Trans Am has been meticulously maintained and upgraded over the years, and it shows in every detail. The paint is a stunning candy brandy wine color that's sure to turn heads wherever you go. And with such low miles, you can bet that every component of this car is in fantastic shape, from the engine to the suspension to the interior. Speaking of the interior, the seller doesn't mention much about it, but based on the photos, it looks to be in great condition as well. The seats appear to be clean and well maintained, and the dash and console look like they're in excellent shape. Overall, this 1985 Pontiac Trans Am is an incredible find for any car enthusiast. It's got a ton of power, modern upgrades, and a stunning appearance that's sure to make it the envy of every car show. And with such low miles and a clean title, you can bet it's been well cared for over the years. 7. We've got a real beauty for you on Craigslist, a 1970 Lincoln Mark III that's sure to take your breath away. First off, let's talk about the price. The seller is asking $9,000 or best offer for this stunning ride, and when you hear about the condition it's in and the story behind it, you'll see why it's worth every penny. This Mark III is being sold by a friend of the owner, a 90-year-old disabled veteran who has cherished this car for years. He's kept it in immaculate condition, with extensive maintenance and repairs done by quality shops over the years. The seller even has all the receipts to prove it, including ones from before the current owner purchased it. Under the hood, you'll find a powerful 8-cylinder engine that's sure to provide plenty of get up and go. And with rear-wheel drive and an automatic transmission, this Lincoln is a dream to drive. But it's not just about the mechanics. This Mark III is a true beauty to behold. The paint is a stunning factory green color that's been professionally redone, so it looks just as good as the day it rolled off the assembly line. And with just 76,191 miles on the odometer, this car is practically a time capsule. The seller doesn't go into a lot of detail about the interior, but based on the photos, it looks to be in fantastic shape as well. The seats appear to be plush and comfortable, and the dash and console look like they're in excellent condition. Now the reason for the sale is a bit bittersweet. The owner is preparing to move into assisted living and can no longer drive the car himself. He's hoping to find a new owner who will cherish this Mark III as much as he has over the years. Overall, this 1970 Lincoln Mark III is an incredible find for any classic car enthusiast. It's got a powerful engine, a stunning appearance, and a clean title. And with such meticulous maintenance and care over the years, You can bet it's in fantastic shape both inside and out. 8. We've got a real treat for you on Craigslist. A 1955 Pontiac that's sure to turn heads wherever it goes. First off, let's talk about the price. The seller is asking $10,000 for this beauty, which might seem like a lot at first glance. But when you consider the work that's been done and the overall condition of the car, it starts to look like a pretty fair deal. Under the hood, you'll find a replacement engine, specifically an '84 Chevy V8. That means you'll have plenty of power and reliability for all your cruising needs. And with just 86,000 miles on the odometer, this Pontiac has a lot of life left in it. Now, let's talk about the condition. The seller has listed it as good, which is always a positive sign. They mention that the inside door panels have been replaced, which is a nice touch. And based on the photos, the interior looks to be in pretty solid shape overall. The exterior is a clean white color that really makes all the classic lines and chrome pop. It's the kind of look that never goes out of style, and it's sure to get you plenty of compliments at car shows and cruise-ins. Now, there are a couple of things to keep in mind with this Pontiac. First off, the seller mentions that it's front-wheel drive, which is a bit unusual for a classic car like this. It's possible that they meant to say rear-wheel drive, but it's worth clarifying before you make any decisions. Additionally, while the seller says the car is drivable and clean, it's always a good idea to give it a thorough inspection before you buy. Look for any signs of rust, damage, or wear and tear that might need to be addressed down the line. Overall, though, this 1955 Pontiac seems like a solid classic car for the price. It's got a strong replacement engine, a clean look, and a good overall condition. And with a little bit of TLC, it could be a real showstopper on the road or at your local car show. 9. We've got a real gem for you on Craigslist. A 1979 Mercury Cougar XR7 that's sure to get your engine revving. First off, let's talk about the price. The seller is asking $8,500 for this beauty, which is a pretty fair deal when you consider the rarity and condition of this car. According to the seller, this Cougar is one of only 374 built, with the light jade paint and dark jade interior combo, which makes it a real standout. Now let's talk about the condition. The seller mentions that this Cougar was bought new in Michigan, but spent most of its life in Texas, which means it has very little surface rust. That's a big plus for any classic car, especially one that's over 40 years old. The car did have one repaint in the late 1980s, but it was done in the original color. The seller notes that the paint is a little dull from the Texas sun, but it has a nice light patina look that some enthusiasts really dig. Inside, the interior is said to be near perfect, with only a slight warp in the dash pad from the Texas heat. But importantly, it's not cracked, which is a common issue with these old cars. The vinyl top is also said to be perfect, which is another big selling point. Under the hood, this Cougar is packing a 351 Windsor motor and an FMX transmission, which is a great combo for a car like this. The seller mentions that it runs and drives like a new car, with a dual exhaust that sounds great. They also note that the cruise control, factory AM/FM radio, rear window defroster, and power driver's seat all work, which is impressive for a car of this age. There are a few minor issues to note, however. The AC compressor needs to be put back on and charged, but the seller includes the parts needed to do so. Additionally, while the car has 114,000 miles on the odometer, the seller has included a long list of new parts that have been installed, including a new cam, intake, timing chain, water pump, radiator, and much more. That shows that this car has been well maintained and cared for over the years. Overall, this 1979 Mercury Cougar XR7 seems like a great find for any classic car enthusiast. It's rare, it's in good condition, and it's got a lot of new parts that should keep it running strong for years to come. The seller is asking $8,500, which seems like a fair price for a car of this caliber. 10. We've got a classic 1966 Ford Mustang convertible up for grabs on Craigslist. But before you get too excited, there are a few things you should know. First off, the seller is asking $15,000 cash for this Mustang, which is a pretty hefty price tag. But when you consider that it's a factory 289 V8 with an automatic transmission, a power top that actually works, and a deluxe pony interior, it starts to make a little more sense. However, there are a couple of red flags to keep in mind. The seller mentions that this Mustang hasn't been on the road for a few years, which could mean that it needs some work to get it roadworthy again. Additionally, the title status is listed as salvage, which means that this car has likely been in a serious accident or sustained significant damage at some point in its life. Now, the seller does say that this is an easy project with great potential, but it's important to take that with a grain of salt. A salvage title can make it difficult to insure or register the car, and there may be hidden damage or issues that aren't immediately apparent. That being said, if you're a skilled mechanic or a die-hard Mustang fan with the time and resources to take on a project car, this could be a great opportunity. The factory 289 V8 is a sought-after engine, and the deluxe pony interior is a nice touch. Plus, with a power top that actually works, you can enjoy the wind in your hair on those sunny summer days. Of course, as with any used car purchase, it's always a good idea to see it in person and have a mechanic check it out before making a final decision. And with a salvage title, you'll want to be extra thorough in your inspection to make sure you know exactly what you're getting into. The seller does mention that they're only interested in serious buyers and won't entertain any lowball offers or trades. So if you're not ready to plunk down $15,000 in cash, this probably isn't the car for you. Overall, this 1966 Ford Mustang convertible seems like a bit of a mixed bag. It's got some great features and a classic style that's sure to turn heads, but the salvage title and unknown mechanical condition make it a bit of a gamble. If you're up for the challenge and have the skills and resources to take it on, it could be a rewarding project. But if you're looking for a turnkey classic that's ready to hit the road, you might want to keep searching. 11. We've got a real blast from the past for you on Craigslist. A 1963 Ford Ranchero that's sure to turn heads wherever it goes. First off, let's talk about the price. The seller is asking $8,000 for this old-school beauty, which might seem like a lot at first glance. But when you consider the rarity and the potential of this classic Ranchero, it starts to look like a pretty fair deal. Under the hood, you'll find a straight-six 200 engine paired with an automatic transmission. That might not sound like a lot of power by today's standards, but it's more than enough to get this Ranchero moving down the road with style. Plus, with rear-wheel drive, you'll get that classic muscle car feel every time you hit the gas. Now, let's talk about the condition. The seller has listed it as good, which is always a positive sign. They mention that it runs, which is a big plus for any classic car. The odometer has rolled over, so the actual mileage is unknown, but that's not uncommon for a vehicle of this age. The exterior is a nice blue color, and the seller mentions that it comes with good rims and tires. They've also added a fiberglass bed cover, which is a nice touch that helps to keep your cargo protected from the elements. And with rear air shocks, this Ranchero should ride nice and smooth, even with a heavy load in the back. One of the biggest selling points of this Ranchero is its non-op status. That means you won't have to worry about smog checks or emissions testing, which can be a real headache with older vehicles. It's a classic, plain and simple. The seller also mentions that they have some extra parts included with the sale, which is always a nice bonus. Whether you're looking to do some repairs or just want to have some spare parts on hand, it's good to know that you won't have to go hunting for them later on. Of course, as with any used car purchase, it's always a good idea to see it in person and have a mechanic check it out before making a final decision. But based on the description and the photos provided, this 1963 Ford Ranchero seems like a solid classic car with a lot of potential. 12. We've got a real treat for you on Craigslist, a 1982 Cadillac DeVille that's just begging for a new owner to give it some love. First off, let's talk about the price. The seller is asking $8,500 or best offer for this classic Caddy, which might seem a bit steep at first glance. But when you consider the potential value of a car like this once it's been fixed up, it starts to look like a pretty good investment. Under the hood, you'll find a 4.1L V8 engine that the seller says runs and drives well. That's a good sign, as engine issues can be some of the most expensive and time-consuming to fix on an old car like this. The transmission is an automatic, which is what you'd expect from a big, comfy cruiser like a DeVille. Now, let's talk about the condition. The seller has listed it as good, but they also mention that it's a fixer-upper. That means you'll likely need to put in some work to get this caddy looking and running its best. The good news is that the seller has already done some of the heavy lifting for you with a complete rear brake job, new battery, and all new white wall tires. The exterior is a classic red color that looks great on a car like this, but the seller doesn't mention anything about the paint condition. It's possible that it could use a fresh coat or some touch-ups to really make it shine. The interior is also a bit of a mystery, as the seller doesn't provide any details or photos. One thing to keep in mind with an older car like this is the odometer reading. The seller lists it at just 8,134 miles, which seems suspiciously low for a car that's over 40 years old. It's possible that the odometer has rolled over, or that the car has been sitting for a long time and not accumulating many miles. Either way, it's something to keep in mind and ask about if you're seriously interested in buying. The seller does mention that the car has a clean title and is currently registered, which is a big plus. They're also upfront about the fact that they're not interested in any trades, so if you're looking to swap your old ride for this caddy, you might be out of luck. Overall, this 1982 Cadillac DeVille seems like a solid project car for someone who's willing to put in the time and effort to bring it back to its former glory. It's got a strong engine, some nice new parts, and a classic style that's sure to turn heads. Just be prepared to get your hands dirty and your wallet ready, as a fixer-upper like this is never a cheap or easy undertaking. 13. We've got a real gem for you on Craigslist, a 1968 Ford LTD that's been hiding out in a garage for the past 40 years. First off, let's talk about the price. The seller is asking $6,800 for this vintage beauty, which might seem like a lot for a car that's been sitting for so long. But when you consider the rarity and the potential of a find like this, it starts to look like a pretty good deal. Under the hood, you'll find a 390 Police Interceptor engine, which is a real beast of a power plant. These engines were designed for high-performance driving and were often used in police cars and other fleet vehicles. So you know this LTD has some serious get up and go. The seller mentions that this LTD was a rare county car, which means it likely spent its early years in service to the local government. That could explain the unique seafoam green color, which is a real standout shade that you don't see very often on these old Fords. Now, let's talk about the condition. The seller has listed it as good, but they also mention that there are many minor problems. That's not surprising for a car that's been sitting for so long, but it's important to keep in mind if you're considering making an offer. The seller does say that there's nothing really wrong with the car, but it's always a good idea to get a thorough inspection before making a final decision. One thing that's really intriguing about this LTD is the odometer reading. The seller lists it at just 16,000 miles, which is incredibly low for a car that's over 50 years old. Of course, it's possible that the odometer has rolled over, or that the car has been sitting for so long that it hasn't accumulated many miles. But if that reading is accurate, it could mean that this LTD is a real-time capsule. The seller doesn't provide a ton of details about the interior or the overall condition of the body, so that's something you'll want to investigate further if you're seriously interested. But based on the photos, it looks like this LTD has a lot of potential. The body lines are straight and clean, and the chrome trim appears to be in good shape. Of course, as with any used car purchase, it's always a good idea to see it in person and have a mechanic check it out before making a final decision. But if you're looking for a rare and powerful classic car that's been hiding out in a garage for the past few decades, this 1968 Ford LTD might just be the one for you. 14. We've got a real beauty for you on Craigslist, a 1958 Ford Thunderbird that's sure to turn heads wherever it goes. First off, let's talk about the price. The seller is asking $13,900 for this vintage T-Bird, which might seem like a lot at first glance. But when you consider the rarity and the desirability of these classic Thunderbirds, it starts to look like a pretty fair deal. This particular T-Bird is a square bird, which refers to the distinctive square body style that Ford used from 1958 to 1960. It's a real classic look that's instantly recognizable and always draws a crowd at car shows and cruise-ins. The seller mentions that this T-Bird has a dark maroon metallic paint job, which looks absolutely stunning in the photos. It's complemented by a two-tone black and white interior that's just as eye-catching, and with electric windows and power steering and brakes, this car has some nice modern conveniences that make it a pleasure to drive. One of the standout features of this T-Bird is the custom 15-inch US mag wheels, which give it a real hot rod look. The Continental kit on the back is another nice touch that adds to the car's overall style and presence. Under the hood, you'll find a powerful V8 engine that's sure to provide plenty of get up and go. The seller doesn't provide any details about the engine's specifications or condition, but based on the overall description, it seems like this T-Bird is in good running order. The odometer shows just 51,100 miles, which is relatively low for a car of this age. Of course, it's always a good idea to verify the accuracy of the odometer reading and to get a thorough inspection before making a final decision. Inside, you'll find a Kenwood CD player with Bluetooth connectivity, which is a nice modern upgrade that allows you to enjoy your favorite tunes while cruising down the road. The seller also mentions that the car comes with a cover, which is a great way to protect your investment when it's not in use. Overall, this 1958 Ford Thunderbird seems like a real gem of a find. It's got a classic look, a powerful engine, and some nice modern upgrades that make it a pleasure to drive. And with a clean title and a relatively low odometer reading, it seems like it's been well cared for over the years. 15. We've got a real treat for you on Craigslist. A 1969 Pontiac Catalina that's just begging for a new owner to give it some love. First off, let's talk about the price. The seller is asking $10,000 for this vintage Pontiac, which might seem like a lot at first glance. But when you consider the potential of a car like this, and all the work that's already been done, it starts to look like a pretty good deal. Under the hood, you'll find a massive 400 cubic inch V8 engine with a 2-barrel carburetor. That's a lot of power for a car like this, and the seller mentions that it runs great. They've also done a lot of recent maintenance work, including new motor mounts, timing cover, belts, water pump, fuel pump, and radiator. So you know this Catalina has been well cared for mechanically. The transmission is a 400 automatic, which is a great match for the big V8 engine. The seller has also installed a new transmission mount, so you shouldn't have to worry about any sloppiness or vibration when shifting gears. Now let's talk about the condition. The seller has listed it as excellent, but they also mention that it does need some work. That's not surprising for a car that's over 50 years old, but it's important to keep in mind if you're considering making an offer. The seller notes that there are some minor flaws and rust, but nothing too serious. They also mention that the car needs a new top, which is a common issue with convertibles of this age. One thing that's really impressive about this Catalina is the fact that it's been parked inside for the last 25 years. That means it's been protected from the elements and should be in pretty good shape overall. The seller also notes that the frame is solid and rust-free, which is a big plus for a car of this age. The interior is a bit of a mystery, as the seller doesn't provide any details or photos. But based on the overall description, it seems like this Catalina is a solid driver that could be a great project car for someone who loves classic Pontiacs. One really cool feature of this car is the fact that it has air conditioning. That's a rare find on a car of this age, and it's sure to make those summer cruises a lot more comfortable. The seller also mentions that the car has 2 brand new front tires, which is a nice bonus. You'll want to check the condition of the rear tires as well, but it's always good to know that you've got some fresh rubber up front. Overall, this 1969 Pontiac Catalina seems like a solid project car for someone who's willing to put in the time and effort to bring it back to its former glory. It's got a strong engine, a lot of recent maintenance work, and a cool convertible top. And with a price tag of $10,000, it's a lot of car for the money. 16. We've got a real treat for you. a 1967 Ford Ranchero that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This beauty is priced at just $8,800, and let me tell you, it's a steal. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Is this car really in good condition? Well, according to the seller, it absolutely is. The ad states that the Ranchero is a dependable daily driver with no leaks, and it fires up on the first turn of the key. That's the kind of reliability we all look for in a classic ride. Under the hood, you'll find a powerful 289 4V engine that's sure to get your heart racing. And with a 3-speed Hurst Indy manual transmission, you'll have full control over this beast. The seller has even gone the extra mile and installed a Bluetooth radio, so you can cruise down the highway with your favorite tunes blasting. But that's not all. The seller has also done some recent work on this Ranchero to make sure it's in tip-top shape. We're talking a full dual exhaust system, a recent oil and filter change, and a service transmission, linkage, and shifter. They've even installed a Petronix electronic ignition system and replaced the solenoid, spark plugs, cables, and starter cap. And with a new battery and cables, you won't have to worry about getting stranded on the side of the road. The exterior of this Ranchero is painted in a stunning green color that's sure to turn heads wherever you go. And with a clean title and just 46,000 miles on the odometer, you can rest assured that this car has been well taken care of over the years. Now, I want to be completely honest with you. The seller doesn't mention anything about the interior of the car, but based on the overall condition and the recent work that's been done, I have no doubt that it's in great shape as well. So, what are you waiting for? If you're in the market for a classic ride that's both reliable and stylish, this 1967 Ford Ranchero is the car for you. At 17, we've got a real blast from the past. A 1975 Dodge Dart Swinger that's up for grabs on Craigslist for just $4,900. Now, I know what you might be thinking. A car that old must be a rusty bucket of bolts. But hold on, because this Dart has got some serious potential. First off, let's talk about what's under the hood. This baby's got the famous 225 slant-6 engine, which is known for being practically indestructible. The seller says it starts right up and runs like a champ, so you won't have to worry about being stranded on the side of the road anytime soon. Inside, you'll find a classic bench seat and a column-mounted automatic transmission, perfect for cruising down the highway in style. And check out those rally wheels wrapped in BF Goodrich radial TEAs with plenty of tread left. This Dart is ready to roll. Now, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. The seller does mention that there's all the usual rust on this car. But hey, that's just part of the charm of owning a classic, right? And at this price point, you'll have plenty of room in your budget to tackle any necessary repairs or upgrades. The best part? This Dart is being sold by a small private dealer who seems really passionate about the car. They've even posted the Vine right at the dealership, so you know they're not trying to hide anything. And if you're short on cash, no worries. They accept credit cards too. Overall, if you're looking for a fun project car with plenty of potential, this 1975 Dodge Dart Swinger is definitely worth checking out. It may not be perfect, but with a little TLC, it could be the classic car of your dreams. So why not take a chance and make this Dart your own? 18. We've got a real treat for you, a 1984 Chevy Corvette that's up for grabs on Craigslist for just $7,500. And let me tell you, this isn't just any old Corvette. This one's in excellent condition and has been lovingly cared for by its previous owners. First off, can we talk about that low mileage? With just 56,230 miles on the odometer, this Corvette has barely been broken in. And according to the seller, it's been garage parked its whole life, so you know it's been protected from the elements. But what really sets this Corvette apart is how it drives. The seller says it launches like a rocket and corners like a Porsche, which is high praise indeed. And with a brand new fuel pump, fuel filter, battery, and Bilstein shocks, you can bet this car is running like a top. But the upgrades don't stop there. The seller has also added a new Bluetooth stereo system, speakers, and Flowmaster mufflers for a truly epic driving experience. And with a new master brake cylinder and tires, you can feel confident hitting the road in this beast. Now, I know what you might be thinking. What's the catch? Well, the seller does mention that the driver's seat has some wear on one side, but that's to be expected in a car that's almost 40 years old. And honestly, with all the other upgrades and the overall excellent condition of this Corvette, that's a small price to pay. Plus, the seller mentions that they're only the second owner of this car and that the original owners, who were in their 80s, never drove it hard. So you can feel good knowing that this Corvette has been treated with the respect it deserves. Overall, if you're in the market for a classic American sports car that's been impeccably maintained and upgraded, this 1984 Chevy Corvette is definitely worth checking out. With its low mileage, excellent condition, and killer performance, it's sure to turn heads wherever you go. 19. We've got a real gem for you. A rare 1972 Ford Capri that's up for grabs on Craigslist for $12,000. And let me tell you, this isn't just any old Capri. It's a German-made model that's in excellent condition and ready to turn heads wherever it goes. First off, can we talk about how cool it is to find a Capri in the States? These cars were never officially sold here, so finding one in such great shape is a real treat. And with only 87,000 miles on the odometer, this Capri has plenty of life left in it. Under the hood, you'll find a peppy 4-cylinder engine that's paired with a 4-speed manual transmission. The seller says it runs and drives great, so you can expect a fun and engaging driving experience every time you get behind the wheel. But what really sets this Capri apart is its condition. The seller mentions that the paint is a 20-footer, which means it looks great from a distance, but may have some imperfections up close. They've even removed the side trim to expose the original paint, which is a cool touch. And while there's some rust in the battery tray area, the seller notes that the car is otherwise super solid. Inside, the interior is in great condition, with no major wear or tear to speak of. And check out that vinyl top. It's in excellent shape and adds a real touch of class to this already cool car. The seller has also made some nice upgrades, including new tires and refinished wheels. So not only does this Capri look great, but it's also ready to hit the road with confidence. Now, I know the $12,000 asking price might seem a bit steep for a nearly 50-year-old car, but when you consider the rarity and condition of this Capri, it's actually a pretty fair price. Plus, the seller is open to offers, so there may be some wiggle room if you're serious about making this car your own. The only potential downside? The car is located on San Juan Island, which means you'll need to take a ferry to go check it out in person. But hey, that just adds to the adventure of buying a classic car, right? 20. We've got a classic muscle car for you, a 1979 Pontiac Trans Am that's up for grabs on Craigslist for $11,500. This iconic ride is sure to turn heads and get your heart racing, but before you pull the trigger, let's take a closer look at what we've got here. First off, let's talk about the good stuff. Under the hood, you'll find a beefy 350 V8 engine that's paired with a TH350 automatic transmission. The seller says it runs and drives well, so you can expect plenty of power and performance from this classic Trans Am. The car also comes with a clean title in hand, which is always a plus when you're buying a classic car. And while the odometer reading is listed at 45,000 miles, the seller does note that the speedometer is not working, so the actual mileage may be higher. Now, let's talk about some of the potential drawbacks. The seller mentions that this Trans Am was originally a factory AC car, but the AC system has been removed. So if you're looking for a cool and comfortable ride during the summer months, you'll need to factor in the cost of installing a new AC system. The seller also notes that there are lots of new parts on the car, which could be a good thing or a bad thing depending on the quality of those parts and how well they were installed. It's always a good idea to get a thorough inspection done by a qualified mechanic before buying any classic car, just to make sure there aren't any hidden issues. Cosmetically, the car looks to be in good shape based on the photos provided. The silver paint job is classic Trans Am, and the car appears to be complete and original. However, the seller doesn't provide any detailed information about the condition of the body or interior, so it's hard to say for sure without seeing the car in person. Overall, if you're in the market for a classic muscle car with plenty of power and style, this 1979 Pontiac Trans Am could be a great option. The asking price of $11,500 cash is fairly reasonable for a car of this caliber. But as with any classic car purchase, it's important to do your due diligence and get a thorough inspection done before making a final decision.